Welcome back, everyone, to the final video for Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. My name is Kaz.
This is Medibot.
And I was not content to leave you all with a complete gameplay thing and then all the bonus footage of the stuff that we, didn't collect the first time through and went back and did, or even where we equip totally busted, overpowered items and trivialize the final fight basically just by adopting an efficient setup. No. Because I wasn't done talking. And Kaz loves to talk, so there's going to be another whole video of that. So I have stuff to say about this game. I have to say it!
What do you want to say, Kaz?
I want to first ask you, Medibot, what was your first experience, first exposure to Mario?
Let's see if I remember correctly.
Mario and Luigi Superstar
This
Saga.
game came out while I was in high school, which was like flipping golden age of the Game Boy Advance. So you had, I'm remembering during high school there was Sonic Advance. We got Circle of the Moon, which I maintained is a good game.
I love that game.
What else? We had the Mario Advance titles that had pretty fun multiplayer because it was the old arcade game style. There was Four Swords.
There was Fire Emblem.
I never played that in high school.
Oh, okay.
We did play the hell out of Four Swords though, and this game, it was pretty neat. It's a game with Mario in it. It's a game. It's like okay, I liked Paper Mario. I thought that was a pretty good game. He was a somewhat different.
So,
RPG.
and you played Mario RPG at that point?
And it's another sort of low numbers game. Low numbers, low party count. Emphasis on the act of battling, not simply choosing a command from a menu, but actually doing things. And then I'm like, then I found out you have to actually jump and counter hit things. That's pretty cool. That appeals to me. It's what I like to refer to as one of the rules of the of Mario Brothers. I'm sure it's definitely not the first game that happened, but it was the first game that I thought about and realized it in, is that a sufficiently skilled player takes no damage while playing through the game. And strictly speaking, that is possible in the game of Mario & Luigi Superstar Saga. You can, in theory, avoid every single attack. You'll never do it your first time through because you'll get surprised. And also some attacks are really hard to dodge, but I guess from a task standpoint, if not a speedrun standpoint, you don't. This is an RPG where you can simply avoid taking damage. That seems
right. I'm searching through my mind through all the attacks that we saw, and trying to think which one might have been unavoidable. But I really think you're correct. I think it's important to the design of the game that they're. They prompt you with the dodge button every single time because it is possible to dodge or counter hit.
So I liked that a lot. Other than that, I guess I pretty much shot through from start to finish pretty fast. I didn't go for too much of the optional side content. I also allocated my stats pretty much at random. But that still works mostly okay in this game. I put way too many points into speed.
Yeah, speed is pretty marginal compared to the others.
But that was my first experience with Superstar Saga.
My own was playing it on an emulator. Years and years after it came out. I don't remember exactly when. But, I had been playing, actual Mario RPG. And then my little brother got Paper Mario for his N64. I'm like, man, Mario RPG was good. If only there were, more of that. And so then I heard about this game, I'm like, wait a minute, hey, cool. maybe there is just more of that. And I played up to the first dungeon. I guess the Hoo Hoo Mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't even get to Huhuros before I just became bored and tired. Because I felt like, you know, it's an RPG. Where's my stopping point? I never felt like it was okay to set the controller down. And when it got to the point where I realized that these stupid puzzles were just going to keep coming, it felt completely interminable. I'm like, look, I don't want to do the switch and the spin, the switch brothers back and forth. I just didn't have a mind for that. One thing, I probably wasn't giving it a fair shake at the time, but I just lost patience. I'm like, screw this. I'm gonna go back to playing Diablo 2. So I did that instead. I still do like Diablo 2, so I don't regret it at all. But coming back, I did develop a greater appreciation for the game. For instance, I never knew there was a hammer.
That definitely changes up the game a lot.
Yeah. Like, I knew there were bros attacks, but didn't realize there was a hammer. Just I don't know. Yeah, that was my first take on the game. So I was in no hurry to repeat the experience or to collect up the sequels or anything, and I sort of vaguely heard about the sequels coming out, and to my complete bafflement, of course, because my experience had been so bad. Who else could possibly have actually enjoyed the game, right? So why would they make a sequel? But they did, and people would go on about the characters and how great the games were, and they were like, spiritual sequel to Mario RPG and all that. I'm like, but not really, because one of the things that got me early on the game was that this is not Mario RPG.
No, it is not.
Not even close. I wanted it to be that. I wanted the timed hits to be simple. I wanted it to be one step removed from Dragon Warrior choosing menu commands style combat, because that always felt like natural to me. Because back when I was a really tiny kid playing Dragon Warrior NES, like 1, I would do that, you know, because I thought it helped. It just sort of felt natural to press the button when it said, you know, my character attacks. I'm like, yeah, attacks. So that was always my natural level of interaction with RPGs. So I felt that Mario RPG tapped into that, and later Paper Mario also tapped into that pretty directly. And so this one, with all the jumping and the multiple button presses, because I didn't expect it in the first place, and the game doesn't really do... I mean, they just sort of tell you that, but they understate quite how important it really is. I wasn't ready for it, and I don't know. I mean, coming back, now that I am ready for it, and now that I knew it was up, I was able to get more enjoyment out of the game. But that first impression never really left. And the whole game has this sort of crummy feeling that I get... it's like leftover... It's like being hungry, I think.
Are you hungry, Kaz?
Yeah, I am hungry. And this game makes me feel hungry. Can't quite put my finger on it. It partially has to do with the pacing. Like I said, when I first picked it up and I got to the point where I'm like, I just want a town, I want to stop, how do I stop? And I didn't realize that the point... the stopping point, rather, for any given event was just the save tome. You get to a save tome, stop, just set it down for a minute. You don't have to continue on. There's no towns as safe havens or anything. You're always pretty much safe. Just go with it. It also hurt that I never got to the hub town or castle town. So that would have felt a little better for the pacing. But on the whole, even fully experiencing the game, I've been through the whole game at this point. It's terribly paced. I never know when things begin or end. It was very difficult to cut together when we were doing this editing after the fact. So I didn't know how much to put in, how much to skip, because I wanted all of my videos to be, that certain size. It just couldn't happen that way because of how the game sets itself up. It's like, this dungeon is this long, this dungeon has all these puzzles in it, these puzzles go on for this amount. It was designed with scenarios in mind, but not how the scenarios fit together or how long they would take, I think. So that's poor scenario management. Call it that. What else do I not like about the game? It has sand in it. What the hell? Put sand in the video game, Medibot. That's sort of it.
Here's the number one thing that I would have changed about this game. I would have put Kirby in it. I love games with Kirby in it.
Well, it had that little poster in the ocean.
Okay, it had a poster of Kirby, but
Kirby story.
That was you saw it for like 12 seconds.
Yeah.
Couldn't interact with it, and it was in the worst area of the game.
It was.
Okay, the second worst area of the game because there was the desert. Okay, the third worst area in the game because there was the undersea area.
The ocean hates you. I mean.
Yeah. But like,
and to be honest, the ocean is more or less what I'm talking about when I'm talking about sand.
Yeah.
Which is to say the part in the video game where they change the rules of platforming on you for no reason and largely at random. Blah. Don't like sand. It's stupid. There should not be sand in video. The fact that there's a desert is... I mean, that's just them making fun of me for hating sand. So
but really, that was just bad because the escort mission was not super great.
The escort mission was crappy because it felt like, with just a very slight nod towards turning Peach into not a robot, it would have been a lot easier and made more sense. She's walking back and forth like an automaton for no discernible reason, and that makes the scenario more challenging. It feels stupid. If the challenge feels natural, if there's some reason for it, that makes it okay. For example, in the game Gyromite. Have you ever played Gyromite?
I'm somewhat familiar with Gyromite.
Okay, it was a very, very simple game, and it had a couple different variations on it. The game was, you pressed like the A button or the B button, right? And A button would make A columns go up, and the B button would make B columns go up, and the columns would go up and down. In one variation of the game Gyromite, there's a little professor who is sleepwalking. You can't control where he walks, but you can control where the platforms go. So you have to, like, guide him Mr. Magoo style through these hazards, or be a sadist and crush him intentionally, or, like, lead him into pits. But it feels like a natural challenge because you see the sleepwalking character. You're like, oh, of course he can't control where he's going. He's asleep, he's sleepwalking, he's unaware of what he's doing. If Peach had been sleepwalking, I might have believed the scenario a little more. I mean, they would have had to do a number on the scenario to make any reason why she should be doing that, but it would make the challenge make more sense, and it would sell me on the challenge. I'm like, oh, okay. It's stupid because there's this nod towards the reason for it being stupid. Not, it's stupid because, well, just because you have to do this now, player. Why were we even going to the Mushroom Town at that point in the scenario?
It's like,
who knows?
Because she wanted to. That's why she flew here.
Peach wanted to.
Yeah, she wanted to.
And then she wanted to go to the desert and walk around like a robot.
Yeah.
I mean,
very popular.
Not a friendly robot, an automaton pre-programmed to walk in a set pattern. There's nothing wrong with automatons that do this, but They should have a point to do it. I mean, you design the... I'm not winning that one, I'm sorry. I'm going to cut my losses on that line of argumentation. But my point is that Gyromite took pains to make it make sense, and that same level of care or craftsmanship is absent from that scenario and from this whole game at large. As also seen in the mini-games. Let's think back to the minigames. We had
think back to how bad all but one of those minigames.
All but one of the minigames. Can you guess which one on it? It's the barrel one. The barrel one's actually pretty
much
good.
a game. I'm okay with it.
It's a game. I mean, you show up and they're like, okay, this is a minigame, and you're playing it, and it's complete. Hell, it's more complete than any of the minigames from Final Fantasy VII. That had such terrible, poorly thought out, crappy minigames. So I guess as an RPG, you can get away with having several, perhaps like all of your minigames be terrible. You can also get away with not having any! Whatever. So the barrel one was legit. It was a legitimate challenge. It looks easier than it actually is. So you like go into it and you're like, oh yeah, I can line those up. Oh crap, I can't. Oh man, I've just messed up all of my other moves. Where do I move? How do I... Medibot, help! How do I barrel?
Sanford Kong will judge you.
The ghost of Kong will withdraw his promise of fellowship if you fail at the barrel. It was a terribly legitimate minigame, and if you go back and play it more, you get like actual challenge out of it. Like with what we did, which was the simpler version of the scenario, the one required for the story mission, it only just barely gets like the third color of barrel on there. And they give you a whole lot of time to make only a very few matches. So that wasn't too bad. But it does get quite challenging at the higher levels, and you can go back and like go and get good at the barrel minigame and then like show that off to your friends and stuff. I mean, that's it's almost enough to stand on its own. Like, okay, this is Tetris. Play Tetris, get score. There you go. Have fun, kids. And that's why the barrel minigame is good. The other minigames are terrible.
Rubbish.
They're not games.
Complete garbage.
You get to them and then required to do them, so you do them. It's over. I mean, with the border jump, that one was forgivable because that felt more like an obstacle than a minigame. It's like, oh, this is how customs works in the cartoon Funnyland. And I'm all about teaching kids about real-world concepts. Having a passport, going through customs.
Getting detained at customs. Having customs take all your stuff.
Causing
getting punched out by
international
the guy
incidents.
in customs.
Yeah, these are all concepts that children should be familiarized with. They should, they should have an episode of Sesame Street or something where Elmo has to travel on a plane, so they get to know what that's like or something. So that's good. It's forgivable. They do the border jump. Okay, we're crossing the border. Yuck, yuck. It's cute. It's charming. And it's also introducing the game as a platformer, which I really wish it wasn't, honestly, because the game didn't bother to have actual platforming mechanics, i.e. acceleration. But rather, it chose to have no acceleration and just a little jumping that even to this day, I've been through the whole damn game and the platforming still doesn't feel right. I can't just repeat it enough to make it feel right. It's just wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong.
Yeah.
But having a game that sort of warms you up to it, rather than like a lengthy tutorial with a bunch of words telling you that there's jumping in the game, they show you that there's jumping in the game. They make you do it. So the border jump is forgivable. You never have to go back to it, just kissing cousins, you leave it. One and done. Neutral. I am neutral to that as a puzzle. What other stupid minigames do we have? Splart.
Sploit?
It is just junk.
It's a rubbish game.
It's there to pad things out.
It's, at best, mediocre in concept, and due to the hitboxes and other slight mechanical choices, rubbish in execution.
Right. It, like
Average
the rest of
plus
the...
bad equals bad.
It's like the rest of the platforming kind of choices, but done with a real shooting gallery, I guess?
Except they stop moving, which is completely unintuitive and backwards to everything ever.
Oh, it's also... not only does it counter intuition, it also counters your own practice, because with those little, like, mouse shooting games, the mice did not stop moving, and that was part of the point, was you had to learn the timing and do it. But now you learn the timing and then the bombs freeze in place. Do you think that they
at the man
do you think
who explode?
Do you think that they tested it in the first place and they were like, this is actually too difficult if we make the bombs keep moving, and in some cases impossible. So they actually had to, like,
so rather than fixing things, they made it worse.
Well, they made it possible.
Instead of just removing the minigame?
That would be the choice I would have preferred. Like, replace that with a short dungeon, or... You know what? How about another little bit like when Luigi was on his own and you had to raise and lower the platforms?
Oh yeah, the tactical stealth Luigi dungeon.
Well, not necessarily the stealth part, but the puzzle aspect to it, where like this switch toggles these things.
That was a pretty alright puzzle.
They could have done a second one of those. Not exactly the same with like platforms working, but you know, switches do things, figure them out. Or how about this? A logic puzzle. Have you ever had one of those in a game? It just, like, you start talking to people and you have to, like, figure out which one's lying? Something like that?
Yes, but I think the game was about that.
Oh. Have you ever played... Whirlo?
What?
Whirlo. It's a Super Nintendo game. It's about a little green guy with a pitchfork and who is a farmer.
A what?
But he goes on platform. You know what? I'll LP that next, so you can see it. But anyway, the point is, why was I talking about Whirlo? Oh right, at one point in Whirlo, it's a platformer, and you're using a pitchfork to like defeat enemies, and you fight bosses using the rules of platforming: acceleration, jump distance, timing your attacks, that kind of thing. Feels kind of like a Castlevania game for that almost. But at some point you get to a town, and suddenly you have to play a logic game to figure out which of the identical twins or whatever that you're looking for who is not lying. And you only have a certain number of questions you can ask in total of all of them, and you have to use that in like grid, and they actually give you a little button. Like, this is the only time the select button, I think, is used in the game, where it brings up a logic table, so you can track their responses. It's really neat, and as a singleton, it's out of place there, but it would have been more in place in here, I think. You know, get to that scenario, you talk to the art guy, and then he's like, my 4 designers who are all identical twins of each other and like to exchange clothes all the time like to play this prank on me where they tell me that they have each other's names, but you have to figure out which one is the actual one, and then I'll give you the piece of the beanstar. Or you like figure out which one of them took the piece of the beanstar because the art fashion guy can't do it, and you just like repeat his sprite a couple times because they're all identical twins or whatever. That would have been miles better than Splart, because that minigame was stupid and bullshit.
It was a bad game, and it makes us say the word splite a whole bunch.
Splart.
Splite.
through that.
To give you an idea of how much fun I was having playing that, take my commentary from that and reverse it.
What can we YouTube double with that?
With Splode?
Yeah, I want to say there's some magic combination of stuff out there that would be the perfect YouTube double complement.
Probably Kanye West.
For that. Okay, I'll buy that. But yeah, that minigame was dumb. We're done with it.
What else was there? There was the Winkle
Geno
Coliseum.
minigame. Oh, I even forgot about that one. That one had the decency to sort of be a game. It was just... They were way too generous with the timing, I think. Like, cut the total time that you have in half, and the goal that you have to meet in 3/4, and I think it would have been a fair game.
But then the kids can't beat it. This is a game made for children.
Don't waste kids' damn time, then! Have the decency to make a game that doesn't take, like, 4 freaking minutes to do anything. And what's the goal? The number that you decided. Why? How did you come to that number? Had to be some rhyme or reason to it, right? No, they just fucking picked it. They're like, oh, this sounds good. I bet they didn't even fucking playtest that one. They're just like, does this minigame work? Does it baseline function? Okay. And then the programmer, who is completely done with it because he's been testing the damn thing for like 3 days straight, doesn't know the whip stitch about game balance and doesn't give a damn because the thing is finally fucking working. So he's happy about that. And then it ships it off, and they're like, oh, it has the... Check it out, the snail goes a little further when you take damage, and that's the penalty. And that's it. That one just wasn't done enough. It took too damn long.
It wasn't as heck.
Enough interesting stuff to do.
I got in that game. Well, what else was there? There was like the Geno game.
Then there was the Geno game,
which was about pressing A and then pressing B and then pressing A again.
That one is not a game. I swear. It's like it barely even requires player interaction. Like when I was reading the rules, because they have that little placard that's telling you the rules, right? And it's like, oh man, this is going to be pretty intense because you have to like judge with the physics and like slanted angles and stuff. No, you don't have to judge anything. There's just going to be this fountain of things raining down, this complete chaos of colors and shapes, and you have to press a button, sort of, and then press the other button.
Definitely
and that's it.
Lots of colors and shapes.
It also goes on too long, and the bar is set too low for your like required progress. But that one also suffers from being too frenetic. It's just things. It's a rain of mushrooms. For this, they put the little wooden, like, Geno caricature in there.
Oh yeah,
and then
that actually was like 2/3 of their budget.
And then couldn't even get the copyright for their own damn character, because Square is like, no, he's ours. With all of these other characters that they, like, just plain invented, they couldn't invent one more for that little minigame? Good God.
Because everyone wanted to see Geno back.
No, fuck that. That doesn't make any sense.
We want Geno back.
That never made sense. He wasn't even that good. He shot little buckshot out of his elbow and stuff, and I guess that was
he had
cool,
that move that did quad knives.
Oh, I see. Kids like numbers. I got a move that does quad knives. I have a move that does thousands upon thousands of damage. Makes me feel like playing Secret of Evermore again and powering up. Having absurd strength values.
Satan? The power of devils.
The power of devils. The power of glitching the game and thinking you have an attack value that you really shouldn't.
This attack value is made of letters.
Alright, let me hit my checklist here. Definitely asked Medibot about his experience. I have talked at length about the pacing problems with the game at large.
Chopper Brothers. Let's talk for a moment about Chopper Brothers.
That's definitely on the list. Let's talk about Chopper Brothers.
Chopper Brothers is one of Mario's advanced moves, and you get it.
Yes.
It's your second advanced move. It's his hammer advanced move, and it's not too hard to do. And you get to mash at the end,
Yeah.
and it does.
And you get to mash A. It's
It
fun
does
for
a flipping
Kaz.
ton of damage.
Yep.
To a single target.
Yep.
Like, way too much damage. Like, problematic amounts of damage to the point where, why would you do other things as Mario other than use Chopper Brothers?
Like, if the enemy is damageable by the hammer, you should be using Chopper Brothers on it.
So,
Weren't there some enemies that we absolutely had to use, like, hand moves on?
yeah, the blobs, basically had a gimmick of being weak to magic.
You could also chopper them.
Yeah, you could still chopper them.
I mean, hand was way easier because they died to, like, one magic
A
move.
single hand, yeah,
Single hand.
they just took it. If you're in, like, any kind of... The thing is that, like, if you're in a fight with just, 5 random idiots, and it's like, oh, Chopper Brothers isn't that great. Well, if you're in a fight with 5 random idiots, nothing is that great. Because
Nothing in this game, anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
running away is maybe a decent choice.
Luigi's secret move would be good.
Yeah, but then
That's it. And yeah, you're not far enough in the game to have that move. Screw that.
Yeah, because that's this. You need the Ultra Hammer before you can get that.
Yeah. Which is another thing that they don't explain that you need. And like, oh, what's your next move, Mario Brothers? We don't fucking know. What? Well, and that's it.
But Chopper Brothers is a problem with this game because it degenerates Mario's playstyle into use Chopper Brothers. There is no compelling reason to use, except in super weird circumstances, to do things that are not using Chopper Brothers on the enemy who is about to kill you.
I mean, I had other moves. I used those other moves to see what they did.
Yes.
Like once, and then I went back to Chopper Brothers.
And then we saw that they were not as good as Chopper Brothers.
Yeah. It's like, oh, can I get the same damage out of it? No.
No.
Not even close. I mean, I used Fire Brothers a couple times. I think I was trying to unlock the advanced move or something.
It was mostly for novelty, and this is a problem. It's unbalanced. And I've heard people, when I've said, this such and such, it makes the game less fun because it is unbalanced. And they say, why is it a problem? It's a one-player game. It's just you against the computer. It's not like you're playing against another person and degenerate gameplay is a problem. Their argument is bullshit, and here's why. Because in the game, you are a player agent, and the computer is also a player agent. And you two might have different rules, but you are playing against the computer. The computer is player 2 in the game of Mario Luigi Superstar Saga, in the game of every, single-player game, or whatever. So when you make, if you give the player such an unbalanced tool, the game becomes about the player using that tool, much in the same, if we give the computer some unbalanced tool, then it just seems like, why doesn't the computer just keep using this? It's so good, it kills me every time, there's nothing I can do. People call bullshit on it when the computer does it, but not when the player does it? I think it's just as bad either way.
It is just as bad either way. It's bullshit. It becomes about choosing that one option.
Balance your goddamn game.